How's it going, guys? JP here, and this video is going to be my top 10 overrated horror films. And I just made a video where I did 10 titles that I thought were a bit underrated. So I figured it'd be a fun and challenging list to make and try to figure out my top 10 overrated horror films. So I don't want this video to come off like negative, like I'm bashing these films. I actually like a lot of these films that I've picked. I just think they're a bit overrated, and just because I think something's overrated doesn't mean that it's bad or not a good film or whatever. So with that said, I guess I'll get into the list. And the first film coming in at number 10 is one that I'm actually a pretty big fan of, and it's Friday the 13th, the original. I think this film's a bit overrated though, because every time I see a list and or like 100 greatest horror films, or whatever scariest horror films of all time, by the time the Friday the 13th pops up in the list, it's always the first film, and it's never part 2 or part 4 or part 6 or any of the other films. And I never really understood why, because in my opinion, part 2 is a much stronger film than the first one, and part 4 is my favorite film in the series. And it just seems like there's much stronger sequels than this original. And the original is a great film, but I just think that the other ones are better. And I always when I hear people talk about uh, Friday the 13th or whatever, they're usually talking about the original. The film, the ending was, I hear people talk a lot about how good the ending was, not the very end, but the reveal. And I'm like, yeah, it was decent because it was a female, but it's also somebody that we haven't seen in the entire movie, so nobody could have guessed it. And I don't know. I just think that the first one gets way more credit than the sequels, and I think that a lot of the sequels are much stronger. So, yeah, Friday the 13th. I do love this film, though. I love every single one in the franchise, and I think it's a bit overrated. So yeah, moving on, we have number 9, and it is Zombieland. I actually don't own this film. Um, I remember when it came out and everybody was talking about it, and it was like a great movie and stuff. And so when I finally seen it, I just thought it was kind of okay. There was some funny moments and stuff. I'm not a huge fan of zombie comedies anyway, so that might have came into play a bit. But I thought that the cameo was a great scene, and that was the strongest part of the movie. But um, I really didn't I didn't see what made it so great besides that. It just seemed like another zombie comedy movie. I didn't think anything really stood out as like, now that's, great comedy zombie writing stuff right there. It just seemed like another film. And I don't know. I just never really got into it as much as everybody else, and I found it to be, I still don't really see what everybody thinks is so great about it. So I think that one's a bit overrated. I do like it though. It's just not. I just don't like it as much as half the world. So moving on to number 8, and we have a Wes Craven film, and it is Last House on the Left. I believe this was his first film, or at least his first horror film or whatever. And I always compare this and The Hills Have Eyes together, because they're both from the 70s, and they're kind of similar in a certain way. And I just think Hills Have Eyes is a much stronger film. This one, I don't. There's some really questionable decisions in this film that I just don't understand. Wes Craven, I think, is very talented. He's one of, if not my favorite horror director. One of them. And it just seems like at certain times it doesn't even seem like his film. Um, like there's one scene where it's been a while since I've seen this, but after the rape scene, it cuts to those stupid cops with that stupid music, and it just takes me completely out of it. And I just don't understand some of the decisions like that. I don't know what made him want to go certain ways with this film. And a lot of people, talk about how this is, such a great rape revenge style movie, and I really don't care for it too much, but I don't hate it either. And like I said, it's been a while since I've seen it. It's actually been a while since I've seen most of these, so I can't remember everything about him. But moving on to number 7, we have the Amityville Horror. And this film is, known as like the top dog when it comes to, haunted house movies. And it's the one that everybody talks about. Super scary, scared them as a kid and stuff. And it is pretty scary the first time you watch it. And it's pretty decent the first time you watch it, but I've noticed recently rewatching it that um, it's really doesn't have a lot of rewatch. It's kind of slow. It's kind of boring. Um, when you watching the breakdown of the lead male character is fun, but after you've seen it, it's kind of like whatever. It just seems like everybody says, this is the best haunted house movie, the most scariest. You see this pop up in a lot of greatest scary movies and stuff, and I just think that it's decent and it was good the first time, but um, I think the sequel is actually a better film too. Amityville 2: The Possession, I think, is a much more entertaining film, and I think it's pretty creepy also. And I just I don't think that this one is as good as people say it is. But it is a good film. I do like it. After that we have number 6, I believe, and it is Prom Night. Now, Prom Night was a slasher that before I really got into collecting films and only seen what I grew up watching, Prom Night was one that always came up in when I was trying to find, new slashes and stuff. And it was always one that I seen pop up in, the best 80s slashers besides Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Nightmare on Elm Street. It always seemed to be like the one that everybody would say, this is a great one. And when I finally watched it, I really didn't even I really don't remember anything about it except for a long dance scene. There's nothing really. I've only watched this once, but nothing is memorable, and I was so let down by this one because everybody was talking. I seen it everywhere when I was trying to find some films that I haven't seen, and Prom Night was always came up in top whatever slasher films, and of course, I'm not a big fan of Jamie Lee Curtis. I also think that she is overrated. So that's kind of a bad combo. I just think this film, uh, but since I've gone on YouTube, I've noticed this film doesn't have a whole lot of fans. But before that, I seemed like everybody liked it. So yeah, Prom Night. Um, moving into number 5, I think, yeah, 5. We have Aliens, and Alien. I got it on a little slim case thing here, but Aliens is a film that I consistently see at the top of people's favorite horror films, and it kind of surprises me every time because I don't see what people like. I think the first film is way better. um I haven't seen this in a long time, but I do remember liking it, but it definitely felt felt like much more of an action film, which me personally, I don't like action and horror. I don't think it mixes well. And I just felt that the first film's like was way more claustrophobic and way more scary. And this one, I just don't see why everybody likes this one, says that this one is so much better than the original or is better at all. There's a few people that I have met who do prefer the original. But Aliens, to me, like I said, I liked it when I seen it, but I really don't see what everybody thinks is so much better about it. Bill Paxton is awesome though. So moving on to number 5? No, 4. Moving on to number 4, we have the Blair Witch Project. And if you guys watched my um, top 10 underrated horror films, you notice that I put Book of Shadows in the underrated portion. But I do think that this film is overrated. It's one of my favorite films, probably not top 20, but I do really love the Blair Witch Project. But I mean, you have to look back and see how much hype this film had, and that alone makes it overrated. Nothing can live up to that kind of hype. And, the scariest film of all time, it got labeled and stuff. I mean, that's a little bit overrated. because considering not much happens, it plays on your, imagination. The fear comes from your imagination and what you see in your mind. I think it's a great movie. I think it's very effective if you watch it a certain way and put yourself into the film, but it is overrated. Um, so Blair Witch Project coming in at number 3. We have The Ring. And this one is one that I think is overrated just because it got so much hype, and I hear people say how great of a directed it was with the colors and stuff, and I like the colors, but I've seen that before too. How everything looks washed out and tinted blue and stuff. It didn't to me. It didn't seem super scary like everybody is saying. I watched this whatever year it came out. As soon as it came out, I watched it. I thought it was decent. I thought it was kind of dumb at the same time. The whole videotape and then the phone calling you and stuff. I really didn't understand that. This is a remake of I think a Japanese film, which I do own, but I've only watched like a long time ago. I can't really remember it and don't know if it was better. I don't know. To me, it's just I don't see what everybody loves about this film so much. It does have a fair share of haters, but I think I'm going more back to when I was a kid with this one, or when I was younger, when it came out and everybody was talking about it. And even in school, I remember everybody, you know, calling each other and saying 7 days and stuff. And I don't know. It just, to me, it just seemed it's overrated, or at least it was. I don't know. I really don't have much to say about The Ring. I guess I'll move on. Coming in at number 2, this one it probably could make a lot of people mad because I know there's a lot of people who absolutely love this film and back it 100%. But it is The Exorcist, the first one. I've actually never seen the sequels. I've seen a bit of the second one. But this is everybody's like top scariest film of all time, and yes, it is scary, and yes, it is good, but it's also very slow. I do love The Exorcist. It's a great movie, but I just don't see it as other people see it as being, you know, as scary as it is. It's pretty scary, but it's more shocking than anything. It's just like for the 70s, the stuff that they do and say, it just is a little bit shocking, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's scary to me. Yeah, the head turn is super scary, and it is a scary movie, but I just think it's overrated. I find Nightmare on Elm Street to be way scarier than The Exorcist, but it is a personal opinion. Um, this film has so many fans and so many people who back it and say it's the scariest movie ever made and stuff, and maybe it deserves it. I think it doesn't really deserve that much praise, but I don't know. It's a good movie, but I think it's very overrated. And coming in at number 1 is Shaun of the Dead. I don't own this film, but I think this is the most overrated film I've ever seen in my life. Um, it just seems to have so many fans, and I just don't get it. I don't find it to be that funny. It feels like I don't really. I already said this earlier, but I don't really like zombie comedies. I much more prefer the Dawn of the Deads and stuff. Although Return of the Living Dead is my favorite horror zombie film of all time, and I think it is because the horror is first and the comedy is secondary. I feel with like Shaun of the Dead, the comedy is first and the horror is secondary, and I think that's why I don't like it that much. But I just I don't find the comedy to be that funny, and I don't see what everybody loves about this film and says how great it is. To me, it was okay. But this film it's seriously like so many people's favorite zombie film of all time, and I just I really don't get it. I just think this film is completely overrated, and it's the one film on here that I really don't like too much, and it's almost I don't like it because how overrated it is. It's okay. It's an okay movie, but it's so overrated in my opinion. And it's been forever since I've seen it, so who knows? I could watch it tomorrow and love it, but at the time that I seen it, I didn't get it. I didn't get what was so funny about it. I thought it was, funny, but I didn't see what made it greater than any other horror comedy or anything. So, yeah, that's my top 10 overrated horror films. I'm still kind of puzzled about why I think The Exorcist is overrated. I really didn't know what to say on that one, but it just feels overrated to me. So, yeah, that's about it, guys. I hope I don't make any of you guys mad or anything. This is just my opinions, by the way. I'm sure other people think films that I absolutely love are overrated, and it doesn't bother me. I like what I like, and I'm sure you guys like what you like. So, um, yeah, that's about it. I'll see you guys next time, and hope you guys enjoyed.